Aloha, this is Chi Baker from Portland, Oregon, and this is the first video for a launch of a new channel, PDX Rad Dads, as well as I run a channel, Street Tactical Integrations, which is a part of my martial arts school for self-protection and healing, and these two channels will kind of interlink at times. Today, the topic is surfboards, and not only is it surfboards, but it's talking about a close friend of mine and local shaper, Lanny Shuler, who shapes out of Seaside, Oregon, and he doesn't know I'm doing this promo for him. Hopefully he approves, hopefully he's okay with it. If not, sorry Lanny, but I think it might help your business out, and you can correct any things that I say that are incorrect about your board and your shaping, and we'll go from there. Okay, so why local? Why should you buy local boards? First of all, who doesn't want to support local businesses? Support your local community, always a good idea, particularly local community members who are awesome, who give a good product and are just great people, which is who Lanny is. The second thing about surfboards is that local shapers know the local breaks, and they're going to shape boards that fit local breaks. And so the board is going to be catered to the breaks that you surf, whether it's the shape, whether it's the dimensions, whether it's the contours, whether it's the fins that they suggest. All those things are important for your local breaks, and your local shaper, particularly those who've been around longer, know the different nuances of the breaks. They can talk to you about your style, they can talk to you about what boards are like, they suggest different boards, and the shapes that they create are going to be specific towards the local breaks that you surf. Having said that, I have surfed Lannys boards all over the world. What does that mean? I've surfed his boards in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Ecuador, through Mexico, through Baja, Mexico, up and down the coast of California, up and down the coast of Oregon, and into Washington. So his boards perform in these different types of breaks, these different countries, whether it's a sharp reef break or it's a gravelly beach, sand beach break. So his boards perform throughout. One of the boards I'm gonna talk about, which is right there, is a board that I surfed at Kelly Slater's surf ranch. And so his boards perform pretty much wherever you want to go. It's good to maybe talk to him about, hey, I want it for these different types of breaks. But in general, the great thing is that his boards perform. And why they perform is some of the things I'm going to talk about. And we're going to go a little bit through kind of the history of some of his boards. I've been surfing his boards since 1992. And unfortunately, the board that I bought back then is no longer with us. We'll pray for that board. One other board isn't with us either for various reasons. But right now I've got 7 of his boards, and I'm going to talk kind of about the different shapes to help you choose the shape that might work for you. Okay, we're going to start down here. This board is nicknamed the Purple Nurple. Again, this board has actually been through Mexico, Baja, Nicaragua, and Hawaii. It was shaped in '04, and you can tell I've used packing tape. This packing tape is actually older than a lot of the viewers here, so that's kind of fun. This is a 72, a hybrid board, and this design is kind of what has now, I think, become kind of his Cosmo design. And he can talk more about that in his comments or when he rants and yells at me for anything. But it's a great kind of all condition board. It's what I use a lot of times, or used to use a lot of times in the wintertime when the surf is, you know, anywhere from 5 feet to 12 feet. And it works in steep reef breaks. So it's a fantastic board. I don't know how much the camera is going to be able to demonstrate this, but if you look at the bottom or the concave of the board, it's actually got a double concave, and it's fairly shallow. So we'll talk more about that because his new mod design has changed that. So that's the good old Purple Nurple. This is back in 2004. I just dug this deep out of my deck. I haven't surfed this board for quite a while. Probably should take the wax off of it and start over, but it's a great board. It's a great board. So I am I'm gonna say I'm 5'7". I may or may not be. And I'm roughly 160 pounds. COVID has kind of packed on some of those extra love handles for us all. And this board is fantastic. And that's gonna give you kind of a good monitor on the boards that I surf and maybe the size that works for you. I used to be in good surf shape. I am not in good surf shape anymore because COVID, and I've got 5 kids. So that's part of the Rad Dads thing, 5 kids. Think of that, 5 kids. Not a lot of surf time, 5 kids. Okay, so we're gonna look at the purple Nurple, and then we're gonna go, so a couple years ago, this board will tell me when, I said, Lanny, I want to upgrade from a couple boards, and the purple Nurple is one, which is a 7.2. This one is a 6.10, and so I said, hey, I want a board that I can throw around a little bit better, that's gonna perform a little higher than some of these past boards, and this is his mod design. So again, I don't know how well the cameras is, but if you run down that, you can see a single deep concave. And the concept of that is that you're surfing on 2 rails versus a whole deck. And what that does is make the board extremely fast. So if you think of all the drag that happens along the mid zone of that deck, if you're surfing like a catamaran, that's why they created catamarans, is that you're going to be surfing on less surface area, and you're actually going to have more stability because you're going to be surfing off of this than the entire thing. So you're going to be surfing really off the rails and reducing that drag. And what that enables you to do is really cut through your sections. So if you drop down and you get a whitewater flush in front of you and you're trying to make it around this bottom is going to enable you to make it around that section, cut through and get back onto the face of the board, which is fantastic, particularly for us in Oregon, where we don't always have these beautiful wide open faces, but we've got a face drop and then it's going to break in front of us and then we got to get around it. And in order to make those sections so you have multiple turns and a much longer wave, is being able to get around those. So this is going to not only make you faster on the drop and down the line, but it's going to make you faster from getting from section to section, which is awesome. And that's what actually enabled me at the Surf Ranch to get deeper into the barrel and make it through the barrel. And if I have a chance, I'll try to post a video on some of the ways that I caught there. Was there with 2 buddies, Jason Wee and Sean Sweeney, and we all had a great time. So again, this is a 610. This is his Mod Cosmo model. And I consider this my old man's board. So again, I'm 49, almost 50, 5 kids, COVID, working full time, and I don't get to paddle out a lot. So surf conditioned, physique way down, want to keep my wave count up. So I need sometimes an old man's board that's going to help me with that. So if you look at this, just as a comparison side by side, and I'll link the time link so you can kind of move from board to board if you want. But you'll kind of see the difference. They're similar but different. And this board way outperforms this board, and I can surf this board in crappier waves or bigger waves, and it works far better than this. So it's definitely an upgrade. Both, really it's the design of this mod bottom, and super stoked on it. I mostly ride quad. It's fun to ride. Actually, a lot of this board's 20 too, so it's something we talk to Lanny, he'll suggest some fins for the twinniness. Twinniness, that's a great word. I'll get to this board a bit. Just for fun historical reasons. Here's a board. Oh, it even has my name on it. Gee. This is a 6.2 board. It's 18 by 5/8, and this was shaped in 1106. And so, again, you can see his deck. The concave is pretty shallow. It's got a little bit of a double concave to it, but he's really changed that. This is a board I actually had him designed specifically for when I was planning to go to Nicaragua. I wanted a board that could work on fast, steep drops. And so you can kind of tell that it's got nice little whoop, swoop to it. So it's a great board. I haven't surfed this board actually in, I don't know, a decade because I switched boards. But that gives you a little bit on, again, he's got all sorts of fun shapes, fun designs, all depending on how you surf, what you surf, your style of surf, your level of surf. All right, we're gonna go to another kind of evolution. So this is a board actually, I didn't have them shaped for me. It's like Taste the Rainbow or something, I don't know. I surfed this board for quite a long time. This is a 5'11" by 20. And again, you can tell quickly by there, the concave, it's a quad. And I absolutely love this board. What I love about this board is that it's thick up front. It narrows down to a nice little tail. It's got this swallow tail so you can stick that tail well. Sometime ripped off the pad and never replaced it. But this was my go-to board for a really long time. And it is still a fantastic board, but I wanted to upgrade. So just so you know, I don't just buy Lanny boards. Around the same time, Firewire came on the scene, and I got a very similar shape. The Firewire, you can kind of tell a very similar shape. This one's a little bit longer. I believe they're both epoxy boards, and I like the Firewire, but I wasn't impressed by the Firewire. I paid too much for this board, and I still own the board. I don't know why, probably because I got 5 kids and I figure somebody eventually is gonna surf it. But if you like Firewire, that's awesome. If you keep surfing Firewire, that's awesome. I'm not gonna say other boards suck or you shouldn't ever surf them. It's really up to you. But I surfed this Firewire board and then surfed this board, and this board took off like a rocket, so responsive, and just a much better performer than this Firewire board. And I know Lanny doesn't like to talk about volume, but very similar in volume, very similar in shape. Really should perform pretty same, but completely different. And I rode this sucker. Again, it's a quad fin, same fin setup, same everything, and it just didn't really do it. I'll talk a little bit about this ridiculous BoardWorks board in a bit. Try to keep these out of the sunshine. Okay, so back to this board. Again, I talked to Lanny and said, hey, I want to upgrade. This is his Catfish. So, Catfish, oh, for Chi, it's very sweet of him. This is a 319 was when he shaped it. And so that tells you when I wanted to upgrade these various boards. It was sometime around that time. And you can look at these two. So very similar in shape. I said, hey, I need something that's going to perform a little bit higher, a little bit faster turny, and again, want to make it through the sections a little faster, which in Oregon, so this board is about an inch and a half shorter. It's a little bit dimension-wise smaller, but just crazy outperforms that board. So again, you can look at that bottom. So this is his Mod Catfish. So this is a 5'10" board by 20. Here I am at, I don't know, I'm like, my height's like 6'10". This board's 5'10". You can totally see how tall I am compared to the board. And it floats me well. Amazingly, no. You actually have to paddle really hard. So when I am feeling out of shape, maybe I've spent a lot of time with my children and not a lot of time to surf, I'll take out the 6'10". But this is a fantastic board. Usually I ride this board when it's probably chest to head to double overhead high. This is kind of my go-to board. I absolutely love this board, like love this board. And it performed amazing in Kelly Slater's Surf Ranch, like amazing. So if you like to turn fast, if you like good turns, if you like to hit that lip hard, his Catfish is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So I don't know what length catfishes go up to. To be honest, I don't know what distinguishes a catfish from the other boards, but that's why you have Lanny, right? Okay. Along this time, I had the birth, I don't know, my third, fourth, or fifth child. I can't remember. There's been so many. But I wanted a board that I could take them out on to do a little tandem surf. I also wanted a board that maybe my wife could use or somebody else could use. And so I asked him to build me a longboard. Now, if you notice my boards, they're all tend to be fairly short. This board, this is a straight 9-footer. Again, mod design. It's a 3-fin. I probably, if I asked him to shape me another board, would ask for a 5-fin setup. I ride this board, actually due to his suggestion, 20. I've never used the center fin, even in like 8 to 10 foot waves. The 20 is so fun, it's so responsive, and I don't feel like I've got this weird tail that I can't move. This board in particular, he's got two boards. He's got what I would consider his performance longboard. This one is 22.5 wide by 9 feet. And then he's got a nose rider board. This board, it's interesting because of its shape. I would consider this a fairly narrow longboard. I am not a longboarder to any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I suck at longboarding. But this board, you can ride almost like a short board. So if you remember enough to get back to the tail, which I sometimes forget because I look back and I'm like, oh my God, there's 2 more feet of tail. Sometimes I forget and it's a whole big problem. But if you get back there, this thing turns fast. You can whip it around. It takes off super fast. You can be further out and catch those waves early, so you can piss like surfers like me who are on these little 510s off because you're catching waves like 30, 50, 200 yards earlier. But it's a great board. It's a great board for beginners. It's a great board in smaller surf where you still want to have some good performing turns. It's a great board for the youngins if you're trying to teach them how to surf. It's a phenomenal board. So this is his longboard, or one of his shapes of longboards. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really think he's got 2 shapes. He's got what I would consider a performance longboard, which means you can do faster turns, kind of instead of just the kind of the cruiser, and then he's got a nose rider. So if you like to walk the board, ride the nose, do all the things. But again, talk to him about your style, your level, your surf breaks and stuff. So that's his longboard. All right, recently he said, hey Chief, why don't you test out some of my shapes that are happening? And so a couple weeks ago, I tested out what's called his bean. This is not a bean. The bean is kind of like this board, except it's kind of that shape. So it's narrow, much more narrow. It's got a slightly more rounded or snub nose, and it was a 5.5. And that day there wasn't a lot of energy in the surf, and it was really hard to get into waves. Once I got in the waves, it performed great, but it was just really, really challenging. I wanted a summer gravel board where I could keep my wave cut high, but also have a small enough board that I could really whip it around and actually feel like I'm making turns and getting some kind of fun turns out of it. So surf the bean, it was a little too small for me. Again, I'm 165.7 on a good day. Maybe if I've stretched out really well or something, then anti-graviton suspended for my ankles. We don't have one of those. So I said, Lanny, that was a great board, but it's not quite what I need. So the next board he turned me on to is the Atomizer. Okay, and this one is 5.5, 20.25. So you'll notice the shape here of the difference between these two, right? If you look at those the nose, right? So you've got a lot more nose, so you're gonna get into those waves easier. So you're gonna plane up faster. It's got more kind of width / volume throughout the board. And it was a super, super fun board. So I was stoked on the Atomizer. I may actually, when I talk to Lanny, because I am interested in getting one of these, is have them go from a 5.5 to a 5.8. I just think that's going to help with my wave count. I don't think the extended length is going to affect the maneuverability or the turning of the board. It's something I will talk to him about. But just having a little bit more length, again, for my old man's body, I'm just trying to keep my wave count high because I barely ever get to the beach. So when I do, I want to get a lot of waves. But the Atomizer is a super fun shape. Fantastic board to add to your quiver. If you sweet talk him, he'll put on some fun different designs for you, or you can just go kind of straight white. Just real quick, kind of panning out to this other board. This is a board I bought a couple years ago. It's from Boardworks. Got it over the internet, and it's actually a fun board. What I don't like about it is it's really hard to sink the tail, and so it's hard to pivot. So it's a great board if you just kind of want to get in, you don't want to do a lot of fast turns. But if you see how wide this tail is, that's a lot of tail compared to this. Those of you like tail, it's different. You know, there's tail and there's tail. But for turning purposes, super wide tails without any kind of swallowtail cutout or anything, or bat wing or anything, is going to be difficult if you want to get more of those turns in. You're going to get your wave count up because of the width of this board, but for my purposes, I want also something that I can kind of turn better. So that's where kind of this Atomizer goes in. It's not super wide. You can tell the difference between the two in terms of this one just stays wide. It really just stays wide. This one, it starts wider to help you plane up and get in those waves earlier, but then it starts to taper down more so than this, and so that's going to help you with the pivoting of the turn, being able to turn well. So again, couple key components. One is the mod design, that super deep concave that's going to help you surf on the rails. Right? So you want to be able to surf on these two versus the whole deck. The different fin setups that he has, you know, again, you should talk to him about that. And he's created kind of a number of different designs depending on the season, your style, your height, your weight, all the different things where you can kind of decide what board might make sense to you. Obviously, I own just a couple boards. This is probably half the boards I own, to be honest. The other boards are not Shulers, and they're buried so deep. They're like in another garage, probably another planet, maybe another state, I don't know. I don't surf them because why surf something that doesn't work as well as a Shuler board? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully this gives you a bit of an idea about the history of Lanny Shuler, the qualities of his board, and some of the different shapes that he offers. Again, stop by right now. He's got a number of boards that you can demo, which is really awesome. So you can go to the shop, ask him about things. He can give you a board to demo and check out. So you don't have to just blindly buy a board off the shelf. You can really test things out and then really kind of tweak the design, just kind of like I did. It was I demoed that and said, yeah, there's a couple things that I'd actually like to shift a little bit about the board. So it gives you that latitude and really helps the purchase power go up. I'm supposed to be smoking steaks, so I gotta end this right now because Rad Dad needs to smoke some steaks. So you all have a great summer, stay safe, and keep up with the tribe vibe. Mahalo.